Okay, good evening. Welcome to the April 10th, 2025 MSAD 75 meeting of the Board of Directors. Before we begin roll call, anyone who wishes to speak, make sure you put your name on the list up on the podium. As soon as we finish roll call, no more names will be added. Want to call roll?
Sure. Bart Beatty,
Here.
Andy Began,
Present.
Polly Capna,
Present.
Jessica Damon,
Present.
Tony Goncalves,
Here.
Gregory Greenleaf,
Here.
Hudson Hayward,
Present.
Mary Hobson,
Here.
Haley Kulis,
Here.
Ryan Larson,
Here.
Jim Moulton,
Here.
and Pacelli is not here.
Yep.
Here. That was sneaky. Amy Spelke,
Here.
Frank Wright.
Present.
Oh, Ashby and Lydia.
Thank you, Olivia. Okay. If you'll join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yep. So next is the agenda adjustments, and I will point out that we have added 5.7, 5.8, and 5.9. It's 2 field trips and the insurance purchase. And I think those are all the adjustments.
So moved.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? Unanimous, thank you. So before we begin public comment, I want to remind the speakers that you should begin with your name and your town of residence, and you are to address me, the chair. You're not permitted to share gossip, make defamatory comments, or use abusive or vulgar language. Complaints or allegations concerning specific students are not allowed. There should be no discussion of personnel matters. In fact, based on a recent ruling, you can't make any comments, positive or negative, about employees. And we ask you to, well, there's only 3 of you, so I don't think it'll be duplicative. And with that, I will invite Andrea Cram to come forward.
Hi, my name is Andrea Cram. I am from Bowdoin, Maine. I come in to you tonight, not just as a concerned community member, but someone who cares deeply about our students, our educators, our coaches, and the future of the hockey program. For the past 13 weeks, that's 94 days or 62 school days, we have been waiting for answers about the ongoing investigation into the high school hockey team. According to your own board policies, investigations of this nature are to be completed within 40 school days. But here we are, 22 days past that mark with no public explanation, no notice of extension, and no clarity. Did you really think that we were going to let this go away? I have spoken with several respondents who have not received any formal notice of extension or justification for why this investigation has exceeded the timeline. This raises serious concerns about transparency and adherence to district policy. In reading board policy, it states that the superintendent is responsible for making a determination on any appeal. They are expected to conduct an impartial review, but if the superintendent recused themselves from the investigation and the decision-making process and was unable to make an impartial determination about the events from senior night, how can we trust that the superintendent will be able to handle any potential appeal fairly? That is not just a technical issue, it is a matter of public trust. And I have to ask why. Why is it necessary to bring in not only a third-party investigator, but also a third-party decision maker? Is it standard practice in this district for all Title IX investigations to be outsourced? I'm guessing the answer is no, because the district already employs trained professionals, including our affirmative action officer, Title IX coordinator, superintendent, and administrators, who are capable of conducting investigations and making determinations. That is part of their job, and that is what they are here for. So why are MSAD 75 taxpayers now footing the bill for this? How much has this cost so far? $50,000? $75,000? Maybe more? How much more is expected to be spent on the decision maker's portion of the process? Given the likely cost is the rough equivalent to at least one teaching position, a person who could be supporting students in the classrooms, especially helping to reduce class sizes, particularly in kindergarten. What resources, what programs, what positions might be cut or unfunded in next year's budget because of this decision to outsource. The community deserves to know what we are sacrificing in order to fund this process. Some respondents have been removed from the Title IX portion of the investigation, yet the decision maker is still being paid to determine whether they violated other district policies. Why wasn't that handled internally? Aren't district administrators specifically trained to interpret and enforce school policy? Or do you not trust your administrators to understand district policies well enough to do the job they were hired to do? Furthermore, when will the district release the findings from senior night incident investigation to the entire community? It is becoming increasingly clear that the length and nature of this investigation are what contributed to the division and tension within the team and the community, not t-shirts worn by parents or stickers on helmets worn by players. Not to mention, we didn't have any coaches to finish out the season. The district was very quick to assign blame, but has been noticeably reluctant to share the real reasons why the season was canceled. And we're still left wondering, will there even be a high school hockey season next year? Families are trying to plan. Players have been left in limbo. If the Friends of Eagles Hockey Board cannot find new members or raise the necessary funds, how does the district plan to financially support the high school hockey program moving forward? Last year, Friends of Eagles Hockey contributed $14,065 toward the team's ice time bill. This year, that number is expected to be significantly higher. And through just 2 fundraisers, the annual golf tournament and the alumni game, we raised $22,000 to support the program for this season. But now I have to ask you, how many members of the community are going to continue showing up to support a program whose integrity has been dragged through the mud by this investigation? How do you expect people to donate, volunteer, and fundraise for a team clouded by unanswered questions and public doubt, with no answers and no public support from the highest district leadership? Is it your standard policy in this district for every coach to reapply for their positions annually, even under 1-year contract? If not, why is that the explanation being used for coaches who have inquired about their future? Where is the district in its pursuit of the MPA waiver? And even if the MPA does grant the waiver, is the district even willing to do what it takes to move this program forward? I know Mr. Hoffman is, I know Mr. Godo is, but they don't make the financial decisions. There's a very real chance that Lisbon and Morris will pull out of the co-op once MPA grants the waiver. Given that the fate of the 2025 and 2026 season is unknown, several players have already secured spots on full season travel teams for next season and will be unable, per MPA rules, to play high school hockey. This program, which just experienced its highest level of participation in decades with 37 players, now stands to lose more than half of its roster before the season even begins. If there are not enough players for a varsity team, will the district look to form a new co-op? Or will these players who you are looking toward to keep the program going simply going to be left behind again? And finally, when will the district acknowledge the impact this has had on the students who did absolutely nothing wrong? When will the district apologize to the 35 players who followed the rules, showed up at 4 a.m. practices 4 days a week, almost all season, played their hearts out through turmoil, tension, and unexpected midseason coaching change, and were dragged into a situation that they never asked for, only to be blamed for the cancellation of their own season? They deserve better. We all do. The questions you are unable to answer tonight are serious questions that deserve clear and timely answers. I will leave copies of my questions here tonight. The community deserves transparency, accountability, and reassurance that the district resources are being used wisely and equitably, especially when student athletes, families, and staff are so deeply impacted. Thank you for your time this evening.
I sure do. Your mic's off. Yep.
Oh, on there?
Except for Facebook.
Next you have,
Andrea's a bit taller than I am, so. Good evening. My name is Margaret Galligan-Schmall, and I'm a resident of Lisbon. Given the role that I play in the school committee in Lisbon, I'm fully aware of how difficult it is to sit where you're sitting tonight. You are often faced with some very challenging moments, and this investigation is certainly an example of this. What I also know is that you were voted in by your community to ensure that your policies are followed and that the safety of all students is at the forefront. You are charged with pushing back against your superintendent, even when it gets hard and even when it gets uncomfortable. But I don't stand here today as a board member. I stand here today because I am the mother of an MTA hockey player, a hockey player who showed up every day, 4 a.m., practices to play for the name on the front of his jersey, not the back, the front of his jersey, even when the interim coaches questioned his character and failed to protect him. For many of you, I am sure that you would prefer that the parents who have been extremely vocal would just move on. As a parent, it is our responsibility to be a voice for our children when they have not found their own. But I assure you, we won't move on until accountability has been taken and a public apology has been delivered to all of the athletes and the families. We teach our children to be kind humans and own up to their missteps. I would ask that you take a moment and reflect on that fact that you have allowed these athletes to be treated in such a disrespectful manner and acknowledge this. So here we are, as Andrea stated, 94 days. That is how long it has been since the hockey season was abruptly ended. Time and time again, we've been asked to be patient. You have asked us to trust the process. And as I stated before, I'm very well aware of policies. I'm fairly certain I might know yours more than I know mine now in our own district. And in that time, a coach has resigned. False narratives about children and their families have been created. Athletes have struggled both emotionally, physically, academically, mentally, and these friendships have been fractured. And not once, for the most part, with the exception of the gentleman, Mr. Hoffman, who's sitting behind us, has owned up and apologized for some of the shortcomings of this district. The path of MTA hockey is going to look very different next year, as even my own child has taken the step to, he wanted to play. He wanted to play MTA hockey. He wanted to play in Casco Bay, but that was taken away from him because, as you know, the MPA, you have to appeal the decision, and that takes time. But the investigation has to be over in order for you to present to the MPA. So these children have to make choices about their future and about their hockey life, and that's what's next. So again, it's going to look a little different next year. And I hope that you all sitting at this table have the strength to navigate this, because these athletes, well, I don't have any skin in the game because I'm not an MTA parent, but I do have lots of friends and family back here, and that's what they're considered as family, who these boys are going to struggle and they need the support. So you need to dig down deep and find the strength and do what's right for these boys. Thank you.
I'm Audrey Atwood, Topsom, Maine. I'm speaking in relation to the Mount Arent Boys Ice Hockey 2024-2025 season and the Title IX investigation. I am a former graduate of Mount Arent High School. Since graduating, which was kind of a long time ago, I have had the extreme honor and opportunity to work with and mentor under some of the most excellent examples of leadership in the last 18 years of my career. I've worked hand in hand with a woman who appeared in Forbes' top 10 list of women in biotechnology. I've worked with an innovative benefactor who transformed a multi-million-dollar company with a $21 IPO to a multi-billion-dollar company in the S&P 500, where it was trading at over $600 a share, among other leaders. So I want to qualify my statement with the fact that I have seen ample examples of successful, true leadership, and I know what it looks like. I know how excellent leaders behave. And I know enough to tell you that how this MSAD 75 organization is managing this issue is probably one of the most deplorable examples I've ever witnessed. And it cuts particularly deep because it affects me as a parent and as a wife, not as a professional. I attended a meeting with this board as an observer in February, and I heard a concerned parent speak out about the situation surrounding the Title IX investigation. I also heard the board say things like, the superintendent could have shut down the season immediately. I asked this board and others, is that really true? Because if it is, this organization is setting a dangerous precedent for complaints of this nature, coupled with an emotional response from someone in a leadership position that can simply take very serious discretionary action with no requirement of due diligence. Does this mean that any person in this district can file a complaint against any MSAD team or its members, based in fact or not, knowing that it will most certainly jeopardize an otherwise potentially successful season without any fear of recourse, and tip the scales in the favor of an opposing organization? Because that could invite such behavior. In fact, there has been no protection or recourse offered to the concerned parent that spoke in February about being harassed. This seems to me like a blatant play of favoritism by the board and its leader, who went ahead with a nuclear response, protecting only the accuser and their family with no fact checking. The accuser's family has been harassing people who've spoken out about the unfairness of the organization's behavior, and they're the ones that sought to harass those kids in the locker room on senior night. But we're letting this inappropriate behavior go on with the accuser, who now has some allegations themselves. Yet this board and its leadership have done nothing to discourage their behavior. If I'm wrong, I'd love nothing more than this board to correct me. On February 17th, the superintendent of this board sent an email, and on the 27th, the concerned parent to which I am referring in the aforementioned scenarios requested that certain statements be redacted. As a reminder, those statements were around blaming the division and emotionally charged environment of senior night on t-shirts and posters. Those statements were twisted to avoid taking any accountability for the poorly managed situation by this leadership team, or the poorly performed job done by the interim coaches, or the harassment by the accuser's family during that night. That email purposely omitted those critical points. The superintendent chose to twist the events of that night into something that made this leadership team look less terrible than it already does. The superintendent has failed to take action or even acknowledge the simple request from that concerned parent. Furthermore, I want to make a specific point that this ridiculous email went to my 6th grade daughter. I typically am provided foresight of when sensitive topics are introduced to my children at their schools via letter from their health education professionals or guidance counselor staff. I received no such warning when this email was sent on February 17th. I want to ask this board and its leadership, did this email really need to go to an innocent 11-year-old kid? I cannot tell you how personally angry and downright furious I am that my daughter arrived at school to read those words when they had nothing to do with her. This was her reaction. She came home. She was upset, confused, and so concerned. She asked what happened with the boys' varsity hockey team. There was further division and rumors spiraling at the middle school. This group of people that I'm addressing right now created further turmoil. This had nothing to do with my 6th grade daughter. This is an issue that I shouldn't have been forced to explain to her. You forced my hand, and yes, other enraged parents of young 6th graders, to discuss inappropriate locker room behavior, Title IX, etc. But you really couldn't have filtered that email to a more age-appropriate audience. Or is this, again, emotions getting in the way of sound, rational decision-making? Do the right thing. This board needs to disposition this request today and not let it die. At a minimum, apologize to the parents of those 6th grade students and acknowledge that it was an inappropriate audience for such a topic. Maybe empower the principals a little bit, collaborate before deciding to be a keyboard warrior, and finger wag at adults in this district. I am hearing far too much from the oversight leadership in this district. A good leader is one that I really shouldn't hear from. A good leader empowers their teams. I would also love some apology offered for the callous and cold, disrespectful behavior toward the coaches during this time. There was ample praise to the interim coaches by the group in front of me, where all they did was beat those poor kids down during the entire time and then scream at them at the end. I want to hear this board acknowledge that these interim coaches did not do a good job. I am tired of hearing this board's efforts at self-preservation by not acknowledging what really occurred here. And let's all start being honest. The former coaches never did that in their 12 years, but it's okay for the interim coaches to accomplish that behavior in 6 weeks. I would also request that those interim coaches not coach minor sports due to that misconduct until satisfactory completion of training in accordance with MPA and safe sports standards. In the defense of the interim coaches, it certainly sounds like they were put in a position in which they were very, very ill-equipped. If this board and its leadership wants to own that, I would be extremely impressed at any accountability whatsoever because I have seen none. I'm also tired of this board's practices of kicking the can when it comes to this investigation and releasing the report. Consistently, confidentiality, rambling on with an overview of the Title IX process have been leveraged in an effort to silence the concern of parents over player safety. Our concerns are legitimate. The people in this room are appointed to address our concerns. If confidentiality is such a limiting factor in the release of information, why does the Portland Press Herald and news outlets have access to data that you are unwilling to share? Why do the employees of Big Top Deli know a lot of details? I heard that one the other day. And let me tell you, if confidentiality is such a large priority, this group is not doing a good job of maintaining it. Taxpayer money have undoubtedly funded this investigation. The team that has been hired to perform it has done poor work. Taxpayers have a right to challenge where their money is going. It would seem abundantly clear that the organization whom has been entrusted to carry out this investigation is doing a subpar standard job. Even news outlets are questioning the timeline of the report release and the investigation. I want to make it clear that I do not stand behind inappropriate behavior, hazing, or anything of the like, but I do stand behind standing up for all children, and not just one at the expense of others. But one thing I really urge this group to do is be accountable for the activity that has taken place. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public comment. We will move to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the items in the consent agenda?
So moved?
Moved and seconded.
Yeah, it's not good.
Okay. The consent agenda has been moved and seconded. Any questions? All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. We will move to recognitions and acknowledgements. I'm not aware of any, but I will allow you to prove me wrong. Then, yeah, board announcements, there's none. And reports and presentations. So item number 8.1, to hear a report from the student representatives.
Oh, I'm on already. Okay. Okay, so yesterday was Mount Ararat hosted the SATs. There was a good turnout, around 35 students. The counseling office only accepted the first 50 to pick up the paper and submit the money. Not everybody showed up, but it was still a high turnout, mostly juniors. And then my class, the class of 2026, just had the auction where we raised, the number is a little unsure right now, somewhere just below or above $9,000. There wasn't a huge turnout of people, but there were many, many, many volunteers, which helped the whole event to run very, very smoothly, and lots of donations. So we can officially have a prom, which is really, really exciting. And that's all I've got.
I just want to add on to that and give a huge shout out to the class of 2026 because they put a lot of work into planning for that auction that we spent for the past 3 years, months and months of planning that they kind of had to do in a shorter amount of time. So a lot of props to them. For my class of 2025, we are really just working on finalizing prom decorations, and prom is officially on Saturday. I've already said this, but Saturday, May 10th from 7 to 10 p.m. It's at the Lamont Block on Pleasant Street in Brunswick, and the theme is Roaring 20s. Advertisements will be going out around school in the following days, and also make sure to follow our Instagram for updates on that. It's at MTA Class of 2025. Tickets for prom will go on sale Monday, April 28th when we come back from April break, and they're $25 a person. And then also class officers, we're just working on other fun end-of-year senior activities, and then our parent group is working hard on the after-grad event.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear a report on pre-kindergarten applications, benefits, and outcomes by Dr. Amanda Hersey. Are you going to use the screen? Okay.
Yes, I am going to use the thing. Oh, you did? Okay, great. So I have to join the Zoom meeting now, right? Yes, so I'm going to have a little bit of help tonight from our special ed director, Amy Hall, in a few more slides, but I do want to update the board a little bit on our pre-K program. And so, as you know, we have a pre-K, we have 2 classrooms in our district. One is at Williams Cone, one is at Bowdoin Central. We have 16 students in each classroom. The process for parents interested in pre-K is that anybody within the district who has a student that turns 4 before October 15th can apply for pre-K. And because we usually have more applications than spots, those 32 spots, there is a selection process after everybody who's applied has a screening time with us. And so the screening just consists of about 20 minutes with our staff. It's called the dial screening. It's a early readiness screener. And depending on results from that survey, from the screener, priority for those 32 slots are giving to students who show need from that screener and who have not had pre-K. It's very common that we have a wait list after those 32 spots are filled. I have a slide to show that, and I'll show you what that has looked like in the past. But I did want to start first by just talking about some of these studies. The Maine Department of Ed has a really nice pre-K site, and I just wanted to draw attention to some of the studies that were on there and the benefits of pre-K. I don't want to read these to you, but you can see that benefits of pre-K can mean students are less likely to require special education services. Early literacy skills are stronger and have been noted on kindergarten readiness assessments. There is a 31% reduction in retention. And typically the studies show a 25% higher graduation rate. That first bullet made me curious, and I went and dug into some of our data, and I followed the students that have been in the cohort for the last 3 years. And although we don't have a particular percentile that students score on the NWEA, we do watch our students who score in the lower 21st percentile. It does not correlate with special ed referrals at all, but we do like to watch those students closely. And we did have in our district, the students who were in those past 3 years cohorts, we did have a reduction of 40% of our students in that lower 21st percentile. So it doesn't correlate with special education services, but we did see a significant difference in the students who attended our pre-K program And the students that did not attend our pre-K program, they may have been in another pre-K. There's probably not direct correlation, but we did see a difference with that, which was very interesting to me. And great for our students. Additional benefits is some enhanced self-regulation skills and social competencies. Those are some of our very early focus areas for our students, sometimes as important as literacy and math. So those types of benefits would impact our classrooms greatly. And last, and what will be significant difference for us as we look to increase pre-K programming is that pre-K programs do help address the declining enrollment in our schools. And a study right from the Maine Education Policy Institute has shown that there's some significant socioeconomic achievement gaps that are addressed by pre-K. So those are some really nice things to keep in mind as we think about increasing those pre-K classrooms and what that can mean for us. This is the trend for our pre-K application process in the district. So starting in 2021, you can see that we averaged about 40 in those first 2 years, dipped down a little bit. This year, we are currently at 67 applications. The white arrow is showing you that line of 32 students. So you can see that we had more students than slots. Those students are on a wait list, and we do keep those classrooms full at 16 students in each class. So if somebody moves out, that we do immediately fill that slot. So this year we have a significant increase in pre-K applications. This is the current status of pre-K applications. The line at the bottom is where Amy Hall is going to come help me out. We are going to leave 1 to 2 spots in each of our classroom for 3-year-olds, 3 to 4-year-olds. And Amy's going to come help us just understand what wonderful news that is.
Good evening. The Special Services Department is very excited to announce that we will be, we have signed on to be part of Cohort 2 at the state level. So what that means is that in April of 2024, the legislature approved a bill that allowed school districts to provide early childhood special education services to preschool age students with disabilities. And all districts in the state will be responsible for assuming the responsibility for special education services for 3 to 5-year-olds by July 1st, 2028. It's voluntary to sign on. So last year was Cohort 1. So last year was the first group of school districts that signed on. And this year is Cohort 2. And the district has signed on to be part of Cohort 2. So effective the first day of school next year, we will assume responsibility for providing special education services and everything that's involved with that, child find, evaluation, and providing those services that are determined by IEP teams for all students in our communities, 3 to 5 years old. So we're pretty excited about that. There's a lot of support at the state level for this work. And it's wonderful to have our pre-K programs as a general ed setting for our students to be able, as an inclusive setting for those students to be able to access as part of their programming. So currently, you may know that special education services are provided by Child Development Services, which is a state agency. And they've really struggled over a number of years to have providers in order to service students. So many students have have not received their FAPE or their free and appropriate education, just because of a lack of providers. So this just speaks a little bit about FAPE that we are responsible for providing to the students. So early childhood special education, when we take on that responsibility in September, will be delivered in a mixed delivery system. So this means that we will be servicing students and providing their FAPE in natural environments. So we will be reaching out and creating partnerships with local preschools, local childcare centers, daycare centers, and in our public pre-K. So we'll look a lot of different ways. So for example, a student that receives speech, we will be sending providers potentially into a childcare setting, in one of our communities. So I believe I spoke about this before, but the early childhood special education is 100% funded by the state, so it will not be part of the general budget. The district will receive a per pupil allocation based on the child find numbers quarterly. And the allocations will go up and down based on the students that we have to serve. In addition to the allocation, there is opportunity for funding for high-cost needs, such as, if a student needs a one-on-one, or potentially if a student needs a special placement at a special purpose private school. If necessary, those will also be funded by the state.
Thank you, Amy. And this slide is just reminding us that the opportunities for bringing additional pre-K classrooms to the district, there isn't an impact on the ED 279 form. Students are included in that count, so it does increase the district's total enrollment and potentially raising the state subsidy that the school receives. There's additional information on there about how that currently is funded and the reduced weight of that. So an extension of full day pre-K basically increases the funding that the districts receive. Potentially, we would see a decreased need for intervention services, increased achievement, and most important, school belonging, which we take obviously very seriously. And that idea of the community wrapping around the community, building those friendships and trust, key factors in student success, and all of those other areas. So we're very excited with the public's interest in pre-K, being able to potentially service additional students and invite our 3- and 4-year-olds in. Questions? Now we are at questions. Yes.
Go ahead.
Actually, I have 2 questions. The first, is there a curriculum or learning standards that's applicable? Okay,
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
you're nodding.
Yes, they're called the main educational, there's a curriculum, it's called Pre-K for Me. It's published by the Maine Department of Ed, and there are standards that I should be able to rattle off the top of my head, but I can't. But they are published similar to the Maine Learning Results. They're published by the Maine Department of Ed.
Okay, thank you. I can look that up.
Yes.
Second question is, Amy outlined that the mixed setting could be provided in daycare, Head Start, public pre-K. And then a couple slides before that, 2 slots remaining open for 3- to 4-year-olds
Yes.
from cohort 2. So is that going to, if you can address if that's going to be in public pre-K, or is that on a case-by-case basis?
It is on a case-by-case basis, but we will have, so FAPE for 3-year-olds is determined by the state to be 6 hours a week. So in order to provide special services, you need to have a student in the least restrictive environment. So we will potentially be welcoming some 3-year-olds with disabilities for short periods of time into our pre-K programs to receive their free and appropriate education. It's a model that the cohort 1 schools have used and found a lot of success with. So, yeah. Does that answer your question?
Go ahead, kid.
Mine may be a question for you, Amy. How is the child find obligation accomplished with 3 and 4-year-olds? Like, is it in Head Start programs that children are identified with pediatricians? Like, where does that identification work?
All of the above,
Okay.
daycare providers, Head Start locations, public pre-K, pediatricians.
Great, thank
Yeah.
you.
You're welcome.
Hudson?
Like Jessica had a question about the 1 to 2 slots that might be left open, that you're planning on leaving open. Will there be a point at the year in which you through Child Find haven't needed to put a 3 or a 4-year-old in there, through the CDS process, that you would open it up to someone from the wait list? Or will you try to hold those for the entirety of the school year?
I guess the answer is I'm not sure.
That's fair.
We have a lot to learn. So I mean, I would hate to leave a spot open and not have a kid access that spot. So potentially we would fill it if it remained open.
Yeah. We'll see.
With
I
a
guess, right?
4-year-old. Yeah. Yeah. Well, ask me again next year at this time. Tell me, maybe I can answer it.
So we have item 13.1, we're going to approve a job description, which I believe
Yep.
is part of this program.
Yes.
Can you just talk a little bit about where that person will sit and
Sure.
how it's funded?
Sure. So the job description is for an early childhood special education coordinator. There will be tons of coordination involved in lifting this new initiative. So this person will work under my supervision, similar to our other coordinators, but the role will be a little bit different. So there will be an administrative portion of the role, sitting at IEP meetings, acting as IEP administrator, coordinating with childcare providers in the community. But there will also be case management responsibilities that are more, that our K-12 special educators hold, not our coordinators. So responsibilities for writing IEPs, evaluating students, and supervising. So likely we will have a couple, 1 or 2, depending on how it works out, itinerant special ed teachers. So it will likely look like we will have potentially a para in each pre-K classroom, and then an itinerant special ed teacher who designs the specially designed instruction that's delivered by the para. And the coordinator will oversee that work as well as related service providers. And it's 100% funded through the state and through our allocation from the state.
Great. And that person will report to you.
And that person will report to me. I will work very closely with that person. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't bring my microphone. You mentioned that the evaluation or the need is evaluated quarterly. It
Yes.
just kind of brought to my mind, is this role or is this service a 12-month service or is it a school year?
The coordinator role,
Yeah, or even like our role taking over for CDS. is that-
year round.
Okay,
Yep. So we will take over responsibility. Initially, we were to take over responsibility July 1, which would mean that we would be responsible for providing extended school year services or summer services for our 3 and 4-year-olds in our community. But recently they bumped it back to the first day of school, which was actually quite a relief. So starting the first day of school, we will be responsible. So next year we will have responsibility for providing ESY services to that cohort of kids. Yeah. And we'll evaluate and identify year round.
And how many pre-K classrooms are we planning on for next year at this point in time?
So we're maintaining the 2 we have, and then in the budget, there's a proposal to add 2 more.
Amanda, or others, my question is about the 67 applications, I think was the number. So a real bumper crop, right, for the upcoming year.
Yes.
What do you attribute that phenomenon? I know I've heard some of the scuttle. I think Brunswick had a huge wait list for its pre-K program too. I'm wondering if you know what's going on.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I can't answer that. I haven't heard from families. I've received a few emails that the Parent Square message that was sent out explaining that we were exploring adding additional classrooms might have.
Might have driven interest, yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
it could have. And it may just be that we did have a change in the Bowdoin location. That classroom had been a Head Start classroom that was in Brunswick. And we moved that classroom to the Bowdoin School so that we had all of our students on our campus. And then we don't know, no longer have that collaborative with pre-K, and we have our own operating budget teacher in there. And that may just have raised awareness about the pre-K program in the district now that it's located within the Bowdoin Central School. But I don't have an answer for that,
No,
Kim.
it's fine, thank you.
Great. Thank you all. Thank you, Amy.
Yeah.
Not be trusted with the microphone. All right. I'll let Heidi get herself organized. The next item is the superintendent's report.
Not a lot to report today. We are heading into next week. We have vacation, not next week, at the end of next week, we have vacation week. So just a reminder to that. Pre-K applications will be closing next Friday. So if you're listening and you haven't signed up, please do so. Our kindergarten registration is also open. And we're just chugging along and doing some really positive things. I'll be sending out a new newsletter this weekend. We had a great solar wind project actually at the middle school, and it was on the news. If you didn't get a chance to watch that, I'll be sending out the link for that. So yeah, just kind of doing some good things, and you'll hear from me soon.
I don't have much for a board chair's report either, just to remind everybody that next week we are going to hear about, we have our special meeting to hear about the strategic plan. Very much looking forward to that. And that brings us to the committee reports. And first is finance.
All right, so we met Monday, March 31st as a committee to review and make a final recommendation on the budget proposal. And in that point, we did, again, as we said earlier in the previous meeting tonight, that the committee approved was a 5.05% budget increase that then shifted as we learned more post that. And that was really the big piece that we had at that meeting. We had our meeting earlier this evening in which we had our final public budget hearing, the most recent update that had us at just over 5.5%. For the increase to the budget. And we'll be voting on that here in a little bit. The other thing I just do want to remind everybody here and anybody at home that may be listening is the next couple of steps from here. Again, pending approval of the budget vote tonight by the board, we have scheduled for Thursday, May 15th at 6:30 p.m. in the Orion, the district budget meeting. And then pending the results of that night's kind of discussion, deliberation, vote by the public, the budget would then go to voters for Tuesday, June 10th at your local town polling station. So those are the kind of 3 milestones we have ahead of us at this point.
Thank you. The curriculum committee.
Excuse me, in tonight's meeting, we were presented with and had a chance to have deep conversations around the Learning Commons program review that's been carried out. We got a clear understanding of the methodology used tied to the Maine Association of School Libraries, the standards, et cetera, based there. And we're introduced to the proposed curriculum, which we will, the framework for the proposed updated curriculum, which we'll look at in 13.7 later on. The committee, upon hearing the review, the document is in the onboard, the program review 2024 to 2025. But the committee moves forward, and when it comes time for that vote, did recommend passage of that and approval to move forward, because the next step will be building out the activities, the actual curriculum based on the new framework that's been put forward.
Thank you. Facilities Committee.
All right, we had a meeting this week, and there was no public comment. We had an update on the on-site solar initiative for Bowdoin and Harpswell schools. Learned that we need to do an RFP process, so Heidi has already drafted up an RFP, and that is actually posted now, right? To invite other solar providers to do the same thing that Revision Energy did, to just see what there is out there for other providers to compare costs and services. The capital improvement ongoing work, current and future, I'll just lump them all into the same update. Good news on the middle school. Everybody can see the progress wrapping around the building, so Heidi suspects that they'll be done by September is what the contractor's reporting right now. So really good progress. They're just trying not to disturb the school day with their work. I think that's the only thing they're really juggling right now. And you'll also see the windows around the front get replaced eventually. So if it looks weird, you know, that's why. The Williams Cone roof is underway. Heidi's also trying to act, and staff acting as our interim facilities director. So picking up the pieces to keep those contracts rolling for the Williams Cone roof. That's the new fiscal year work, as well as the site improvements to Williams Cone and Woodside. Working on a pavement plan and some drainage design with Harriman on that, and that's in progress. Hoping to get something biddable soon this spring, so we can look at a summer project to get those site improvements done. Facilities modification request. Dr. Hoffman presented again to the committee. He did this about a year ago, a little over a year ago, and pared down the request. We just didn't have the modification sheet to reflect what was in front of the board. So in your packet, you'll see 4 trees that represent the 4 towns, and the committee gave a thumbs up on that effort. The original request last year was for 20,000 to be fundraised to have a bigger, beautiful plan. And I think the worry was to start small, so it wasn't a heavy lift for the grounds crew to take care of and maintain. So they came back after a pile of fundraising. I think their funds are up around 10,000 now, and they're going to put about 4,000 into these trees and these improvements closer to door 6, if you bring up that graphic in your board packet. So we would be looking for a motion, right, to, so can I do that now?
Yep.
I have a motion to approve the facilities modification request as presented in your board packet.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Anyone have any questions or comments? All those in favor? It's unanimous. Got it.
And I think the only other thing in the update, the facilities master plan, I've got a couple things, sorry. I'm going to drag this out as long as I can. The facilities master plan work is ongoing. We know that Heidi has reached out to Harriman. They're working on a schedule, and they are super committed to try to get us, something for our next budget cycle for a list of improvements. That's going to be the heavy lift for them as they get moving forward. So that work's going to be starting up soon. The facilities director hiring update, we're receiving applications now. Evan's leading up the committee, the hiring committee, doing a great job with that. I think we have a handful of applicants, and hopefully by the end of April, early May, we're going to have it narrowed down to something to bring before the board early May. I think we're targeting close to somewhere around the 8th, that's the second week of May, right? And we added a facilities meeting. We just felt there was enough to talk about, to keep things moving along. So May 1st, 5 o'clock, we're going to have another facilities meeting. So we'll try to meet a little more frequently in the interim. And I think that's it, unless anybody's got questions.
Oh, all right. Thanks. Transportation Committee.
Try to make this quick. We had a meeting, not this week, but last week. The bulk of the meeting, we spent really talking about the budget for this coming year. We are looking to purchase 4 buses. I believe that's still what's in the budget. That's what was talked about at the meeting anyway. These will all be gas buses. Not in the budget is an electric bus. Tom, our transportation director, as well as Evan, did quite a bit of research over the last several months, looking at infrastructure needs, looking at cost effectiveness of having one bus versus multiple buses, ultimately really landing at the recommendation that we don't purchase an electric bus in this budget year, but look to do that in a later budget year. Potentially at a time when we could also budget to purchase more than one bus as well as upgrade our infrastructure so that we could support the charging of those buses. There's really nothing else of any super excitement that happened in that meeting, other than, we were in and out of there in like 25 minutes. It was crazy.
Super efficient. Model of efficiency.
That's right. Any questions?
Thanks. We have no old business because the policy committee didn't meet. Slackers.
Next week.
So that brings us to 13.1, to approve the request for a job description for a position for the early childhood elementary coordinator that we just talked about.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Anyone have any questions or comments? Concerns? Okay, all those in favor? Great, that's everyone, thank you. So 13.2 is to determine whether we want the warrant articles in the district budget to be open or closed. And so if they're open, that means when we go to the budget meeting in the Orion with the public, anyone in the audience can propose any of the warrant items to be increased or decreased. And then we would vote on it and live with the results. Or closed would mean they can only reduce. They can only propose a reduction to what we've proposed. In the past, last year we did it closed. One was watching or was there. Hudson.
I was just going to suggest, I don't know, we've got some new board members since last year's budget. I don't know if everybody has been to one as a member of the public or not. And it's very different relative to our other meetings. I don't know if it's worth
Yeah, if anyone hasn't been to one, we sit in the front of the audience and we have a professional, what is that guy? Facilitator who, moderator who goes through each budget warrant, which as Evan's numbers are broken down by warrant, and the state tells us what goes in each article number. And so, and then everyone that's there gets to vote up or down on each warrant article. Again, if it's open, anyone could stand up and say, I make a motion, we increase this by $5 million or whatever number they said, and then the audience would vote. If it's closed, they can only reduce it. Jim?
Having moderated Bowdoin's town meeting multiple times, in our town meeting, it is always closed. And the rationale is that the published warrant, in the case of the town and of here, states a number. So as people make decisions around attending, there is a line drawn at the maximum that it can be reduced, but it cannot be. So for the town, I don't know if other towns do, what does Bowdenham
I can't remember what Bowdenham does. That's a good question.
or Harpswell, any? So Bowdoin does a close, that it can be reduced but cannot be increased.
Does the finance committee have a
I was
recommendation?
going to make a motion, actually, if I could
Okay,
do a recommended motion or something here, but I move that we have closed warrant articles for the district budget meeting.
Second.
moved and seconded. I'll give it to Holly.
Good to Holly.
I'll take it. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor? All opposed? All abstaining? 2 abstentions. Jessica and Frank. I believe the motion passes. Next, we will move, you good? Cannot be increased, right? All set? Yep. So next, we will move on to the operating budget.
All right, so the budget that we'd be proposing is, would be fiscally an increase of 5.52% versus last year. And I would make a motion that we approve that budget.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any comments or questions? Frank?
Yeah, I would like to make sure that we read into it the amount.
Okay, so do you
Yes.
want to amend
Well,
or do you want to?
Okay, I can restate it with the amount noted. So I move that we approve the fiscal year 26 budget in the amount of $57,876,308, which is equal to a 5.52% increase over our fiscal year 25 budget.
Seconded by Holly. Any comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor? It's unanimous, yeah. Okay, so 13.4 is to authorize the superintendent of schools to interview auditing firms and to select a contract with an auditing firm to complete the district's fiscal year 24 audit without issuing a formal request. And do you want to explain it, or I can if? Well, you correct me if I'm wrong, but we, for those of you who have been, we had a hard time finding an auditor 2 years ago. We eventually did find one, and that auditor is still working on the fiscal year 23 report. We are feeling the crunch to get through the 24 report because we're about to need to start the 25 report. So this would allow us to find an auditor, and I believe we have some names we can contact without going through the whole RFP process to speed it up a little bit for this, for the fiscal year 24 year, and we go back to the normal process of an RFP for the 25 year, which could conceivably, I guess we can't do them, they have to be consecutive. Anyway, so does anyone have any questions on that?
I'm
Go
just
ahead, Frank.
wondering if you needed a motion,
Yes, we will need a motion.
okay?
Do you have a question?
My question is, maybe for any public listening, can you speak to how the public is, has a good sense of, you know, an RFP process is there for a reason to take competitive bids from multiple agencies. If we're going to bypass that process, how are we guaranteeing the public that we're going to make a good financial decision?
Oh, that's a good question.
We have a list of names from the Department of Education that we will go down through, and we will have specific questions that we'll ask and see whether, I mean, it's a lot, it's about a timeline and how fast they can do it. We'll ask those, we'll look at their credentials, we'll look at, you know, feedback from others that have met with them, similar to the RFP process, but without the RFP process. Thorough review of who's out there that could actually accept us.
Right?
And we will compare rates.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. We'll compare rates.
So you'll be looking for essentially, what's the term in consulting, the best, I can't think of it, the best least, whatever it is, the best bargain for the least amount of money.
Yeah, well, yeah, the smartest, best bargain we can
Right.
find.
Thank you.
Frank?
Yeah, so I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the superintendent to interview auditing firms, select and contract with an auditing firm to complete the district's 2024 audit without issuing a formal request for proposals.
Okay,
Second.
moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. That brings us to 13.5, to elect officers of the board for next year pursuant to policy BDA. And policy dictates that we follow a rotation that has Harpswell next in line for the chair and Bodenham next in line for the vice chair. So I think those two towns should caucus. Okay. That was quick. Do we have a motion from Harpswell?
Make a motion that we have Ryan Larson be our next board chair.
I'll second that. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Congratulations, Ryan. Do we have a motion from Bodenham?
Yes, I'll make a motion that after arm wrestling and much debate, nominate or make a motion to have Hudson Hayward as our vice chair.
Haley seconded.
I thought that was.
All those in favor? Congratulations, Hudson. Thank you. That's unanimous. And then also pursuant to policy, this time BBBAB, it's time to appoint a board member to be the student rep mentor. We do this every year, and I believe Gregory is coming off his term.
Very demanding. Demanding. These two needed like just I had to hold their hands all the way through this, but they're
Nobody yet.
Oh,
Does anyone have anyone they want to nominate? I mean, I'm about to have a lot of free time, so I'd be willing to do it.
Nominate Amy Spelke.
I second that.
All those in favor? Thank you. Better watch out. You're in for it now. Okay, great. And now we're at 13.7 to consider action to accept the Learning Commons program review and approve the updated curriculum revisions for implementation.
so move.
Is that a second, Jim? Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you.
Who seconded your-
Jim seconded.
No,
Oh,
Haley or
Holly.
sorry. That one.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, the calendar is printed in your packet. And
I'll just real quickly, it says policy committee to be changed. It'll be in the forum as we're talking about cell phones.
oh, we're expecting a crowd, I guess.
Ready for it.
And so, I guess I can do this. I move to enter executive session for the purposes of discussing confidential personnel matters and student matters pursuant to 1 MRSA, section 4056A and F, and to also consult with legal counsel regarding board's legal rights and duties.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded by Holly. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you.